debate this evening. You will be free to speak as much as possible. The only rule that I ask of you is not to speak at the same time. If you start talking over one another, I'll ask Pascal, our sound engineer, to turn off your mics. So let the debate begin, or I was going to say good game. So we'll move on to our first opening question. You'll have 45 seconds each to answer. This election, according to many, has been hijacked by Trump. So to assert our sovereignty early in this debate, I'll ask you to name 2 things you'd put forward, concrete things that will change the lives of Canadians, but that have nothing to do with the United States. 45 seconds. Mr. Carney, you're first.
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Mr. Leroy. And I'd like to thank everyone watching at home for joining us tonight. And I'd like to thank the other leaders for your service to Canada. 2 things that don't include Mr. Trump. First of all, we need to double the rhythm of construction of new homes here in Canada. That's absolutely fundamental. And the second thing, we need to promote and strengthen our cultural institutions in Canada.
45 seconds, Mr. Poilievre. 2 things that you would promise Canadians to change their lives that have nothing to do with the United States.
Thank you, Mr. Roy, and thanks to my colleagues for being here today. Clearly, life is no longer affordable. The promise of an affordable life is broken. I have a plan to make life more affordable by...
Oh my fucking... Jesus. I'm a moron. I'm watching my own live stream now. I hate my life. There we go.
Reduce their taxes too, so that our young people can save up to $100,000 on a new home and restore the promise of Canada.
Mr. Blanchet.
I would like to come back to something that I do all year long. First of all, thank you for having welcomed us. I have been waiting for this moment for a long time. I would like to insist on 2 things for Quebec that I was talking about before.
Could watch it just in French and translate for you guys, but I just wanted to hear what their French sounds like.
Il faut redoubler le rythme de construction de logements ici au Canada. Ça, c'est fondamental. Et deuxièmement, il faut resserrer et promouvoir nos institutions culturelles au Canada.
He's definitely got a franglais accent.
Évidemment, la vie n'est plus abordable. La promesse d'une vie abordable est brisée. Maintenant, j'ai un plan pour rendre la vie plus abordable en coupant les impôts de 15%. Ça, c'est un élément qui va récompenser le travail pour la classe moyenne.
All right, cool. I get it.
The Trump crisis is Quebec's right to have a different and open economy, open to the world, based on its own natural resources, on its own attachment to a green economy, but also Quebec's right to be different, to have a different language, to have a different culture, to have different values, to have different immigration models that need to succeed. These are elements that should always have been mentioned, but that have a particularly new sense with this new crisis.
Great. Mr. Singh, 45 seconds.
He,
2 things that
the
have nothing
question
to do
was,
with the American.
yeah, that have nothing to do with America.
Thank you for the question. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about values. What are the values that underpin the answer to this question? Canadians and Quebecers like taking care of one another. We come together. That is what we believe in. That is a basic value for us. And this value is embodied in our public health care system, which has nothing to do with the U.S. And we want our healthcare system to be nothing like the American one. We will expand pharmacare so that everyone can access the medications they need. And I also want to talk about dental care. I also want to expand that program, which owes itself to us.
Thank you. I'd like to reassure you, Mr. What does he plan to do with the new president of the United States? What do you plan to do with this president? That is the elephant in the room.
What was this
No
video?
we have to. You can't know what's in store with him. I don't think any solution is going to be possible. We always thought they were our ally. It doesn't make sense. You can't reason with him. The government will have to stand firm. Stay firm. We have to put him in his place. Otherwise, he'll destroy us totally.
Holy shit.
The answer should be pragmatic. It would be good to pause some of our services to the
Dude,
U.S.
Poilievre's face.
They need us. An eye for an eye. No messing around. Get us out of this mess. We need a leader who can make decisions to destabilize Trump and make him respect Canada. What does he plan to do with the new president of the United States?
Yeah.
What do you plan to do with this president? That is the elephant in the room. So for your information, there are 1,073 days left in Donald Trump's term. Why do you think that you are the best person here tonight to negotiate with Mr. Trump? Mr. Poilievre, 35 seconds.
All right, this is a good question.
We will never be an American state. We will remain sovereign.
Thank you
On my
for
first day
stating
as
the
Prime
obvious.
Minister, I will restart negotiations to accelerate a deal that will put an end to the tariffs and protect our sovereignty. We can't control Trump, but at the same time, we have to control what we can control. We need to reverse liberal economic policies that have weakened our country.
Dude!
We need to unleash our resources, cut taxes, and bring jobs back home so that we can face Trump
Thank you.
from a
Mr.
position
Carney,
of
35
strength.
seconds.
All right, well, first of all, in a crisis, you have to plan for the worst possible situation, and you have to have a plan to build a strong economy.
Each
here in
debator has
Canada.
their own
And we need to
like
react with
translator.
strength, and those are the elements that will allow us to succeed with Mr. Trump. He respects strength. He respects people who understand how the world works and who understand how the private sector works. And Canada needs to create other options, new, reliable partnerships around the world, and that's what I'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Blanchet.
I'm not against that answer.
Mr. Trump.
I'm not really against Poilievre's answer. It was just like, why are you attacking the
from his
liberals?
own news
Like,
speak
I know
outside
that that's
their
your whole
economies
shtick,
dependent
but
on ours. But there will be a lot of harm done to Canada, to Europe, to Mexico before then. We have to realize that our joint GDP is bigger than the States. Our population is bigger than the States, and so retaliation is going to hurt the States, but we have to negotiate in a rational way, and we shouldn't fall to fear, and we shouldn't spin fear
Mr.
for political
Singh?
reasons.
Conclusions?
It's all about priorities. For me, now is the time to invest, not cut. It is the time to protect what we hold dear, our farmers, our culture, the French language. These things should not be sacrificed. It is time to defend who we are, what our values are. And
this question's kind of
we
shit
believe in
now that I
helping
think
one
about it.
another.
Like,
That's
they
what
don't
we
have
will
enough time
do.
to really
How?
answer.
We will strengthen our healthcare system. We will not let it be Americanized. That is crucial. We must defend who we are.
So, open debate to begin now for about 15
Okay,
minutes.
there we go.
Mr. Poilievre, you have called Carney a political grifter, a globalist banker who's disconnected from reality. And Mr. Carney, you've said Pierre Poilievre is a career politician who knows nothing about how the real world works. So I ask you the question, which of you first is capable of standing up to Donald Trump? Mr. Poilievre.
I am, because I'm going to put Canada first. I will never compromise Canada's interests, and I will control what we can control here. Obviously, no one will be able to control the decisions of Donald Trump, but we can control.
He keeps
our
talking about how we
economy,
can't
our
control
domestic
Donald Trump.
economy,
It
by
seems like
overturning
he's
the
so
liberal
it seems like he's so quick to say like we're not going to be able to do anything. We have to just worry about ourselves. Can you play Roblox with me? Sure, of course, Rara.
economic
Not right now though.
policies that have weakened our country and made us more dependent on the
The issue
Americans.
is, Mr. Poilievre,
Yeah, he's like, this is our fault. We need to worry about ourselves. We can't control Donald Trump. It's like, but we need to. We kind of need to control Donald Trump. I'm not saying you need, like, nobody's saying you need to go out there and, like, physically fucking detain him. But, like, you need to make sure that he can't fuck with Canada. No.
By overturning liberal economic policies that have weakened our country and made us more dependent on the
issue
Americans.
is, Mr. Poilievre,
Well, if I
you would make Canada more like the
That's not
United
true.
States. You would
not true.
Americanize our healthcare system,
not true.
privatize it.
He's talking over him. I can't.
You would
not true.
Americanize.
well, if I
You would make Canada more like the
That's not
United
true.
States. You would
not true.
Americanize our healthcare system,
not true.
privatize it. Everyone knows that's what conservatives
That's
do.
not
Mr.
true.
Carney, you said that you're better?
All right. First of all, I know how to negotiate. And I agree with Mr. Singh. We need to start by saying what's never going to be on the table. The French language, Quebec's culture, and supply management will never be on the table. Our resources, that's the first thing. Second, in terms
Do they have a
of Mr.
clock of
Blanchet's
how
point,
long they've been speaking? That's crazy.
the
That's just like
opportunities
running
that
in the
we have
background.
with the European Union are there, and I've already started building new relationships with the European Union. As Prime Minister, I met with the President of France and with the President of the European Commission.
So far, Carney has the best answer, but that's just because Singh attacked Polyev, because Polyev is like, how do we deal with Trump? You can't deal with him. We just need to fix our shit and get rid of all the liberal policy. It's like, okay, so yeah, what you're saying is that we're the ones that are the bad country. We're weak. We need to strengthen ourselves because Donald Trump's going to do his bullshit no matter what. It's like, you can contain him. Like, do you think that fucking Great Britain was like, well, yeah, let's just let Mustache Man do whatever the fuck he wants? Oh, he's invading France? Sure. Who cares? It's really us. We're the problem. We're the problem. We're the reason that he wants to expand so much.
There's a lot to unpack in that,
It's like, he wants to annex the fucking country, dog.
let's be honest. And perhaps it's right.
He's kind of backed out on the joke since Carney got elected, but that's because you can control Trump. Carney's like literally been an example of that, and him saying like, I'm a negotiator plays in his favor.
A lot to unpack in there, let's be honest. And perhaps it's right. You say that you're an expert in managing a crisis, but you say you're a negotiator, but, well, perhaps negotiating with tax havens. But when it comes to trade agreements, I haven't seen the proof. We apparently have to believe you with no political experience. And so I find it's kind of funny because people say we have to unite and work together. On the one hand, you have never spoken to me before this evening. You're not trying to figure out how to collaborate between equals, Quebec, Canada, Mexico, European partners. You're trying to score divisive points that only serves the United States of America.
All right.
That's a weird
just
attack.
Started as Prime Minister. I've been Prime Minister for
Yeah.
a month. In the first week, I signed an agreement with the premiers of all the provinces, the Premier of Quebec and the premiers of all the provinces and territories concerning free trade within Canada. It's also an agreement that deals with trade corridors. That's an example. That's an example.
You haven't sat with any premiers. You've sat with MPs that will be elected at the same level as you if you're elected.
The problem, Mr. Carney, is that your party has been in power for 10 years. And in that time,
This whole
it's not
fucking thing.
things that are going to change things. It's your policies that have blocked resources. C-69, which blocks not just pipelines, but also dams, mines.
Oh, don't do this to me. I don't want to fucking. I'm not paying for your service. Okay. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has made his own Trump-like claims of easy future energy project accomplishments. He also trotted out a very revisionist narrative of how liberals ruined everything, especially around oil and gas development. To prove his point, he recently posted a list on social media of 16 oil and gas proposals totaling over $175 billion that he implied were killed by Bill C-69, Canada's updated Impact Assessment Act. Specifically, Poilievre posted Mark Carney says, "We do not plan to repeal Bill C-69. The liberal law blocked billions of dollars of investment in oil and gas projects, pipelines, NLG plants, mines, and so much more, all of which would create powerful paychecks for our people." Is this true? Hardly. Not one of the projects he listed was subject to the so-called No Pipelines Bill, because all were submitted to regulators prior to the C-69 becoming law in 2019. As a result, all these projects were instead assessed under the Canadian Environment Assessment Act of 2012, which was under Harper. Yeah. Let's go through Poilievre's posted list. I am curious then, what's the negative impact of what the deal is with C-69 then? I mean, I had a feeling that it was gonna be kind of a nothing burger, but give me something, man. What's this?
Canada seems to be to bring drill baby drill over here. Like, we can't see whose math test he's copying. Which is probably why Pierre called Bill C-69 a gatekeeper to economic growth and has repeatedly vowed to repeal it. Poilievre and his oil patch politician friends thought they were pretty clever when they nicknamed this bill the No More Pipelines Act or the Don't Build Anything Anywhere Act.
I am too smart. I am too smart.
Bill C-69, passed in 2019, created the Impact Assessment Act to ensure that major projects consider effects on biodiversity, water, communities, and Indigenous rights, not just profit.
Yeah. I figured that's what this was.
And nature from unfettered exploitation, which is only a negative thing if you want to speed up logging projects, mining projects, oil and gas projects, you name it, for your rich friends.
Yep.
Canada First shovel-ready zones.
Let's dive into what repealing this bill would actually do beyond the repetitive catchphrases that this Maple MAGA leader adores to use. First, it would rush approval for projects like mines, pipelines, logging projects, and highways with fewer environmental safeguards.
Is it?
Second, local communities, including local Indigenous nations, would lose some of their ability to have a meaningful say in
Yeah,
how
these
their
are all
projects would impact
relatively
their
obvious.
lands. Finally, without Bill C-69, wildlife and ecosystems would face greater harm. Projects with huge environmental risks would be able to go forward without any scrutiny. More than 2,000 wild species already face a risk of being wiped out in Canada, including the northern spotted owl, of which there is only one left in the wild in Canada. Without protections like Bill C-69, we could see these numbers rise. Poilievre wants to frame all of this as making it easier to build things. Well, sure, it's easier to build when you don't have to worry about the impact on environment or local communities.
I think I get this. I think I get it.
Liquid natural gas exploration. We have a deal with Europe, a trade deal. The Conservatives negotiated it, but Liberal legislation has prevented development, and you continue to support those laws. Those laws need to be repealed and replaced with laws that will unleash our resources and allow us to export abroad and allow us to become truly economically and
talk about that later.
Sovereign and
In a war,
have
you need
energy
to determine
sovereignty
your
as well.
priorities. Mr. Carney, unfortunately, your priority is, well, you had time to meet with the king, but you did not increase the amount of money people receive when they lose their jobs due to the trade war. These days, people receiving EI get maybe half of their salary. For people who have already lost their jobs, that is not enough. It won't cover the bills. It won't cover their rent costs. That shows your priorities. For me, workers are number one. We need a system to support our workers.
We'll hear some in a few seconds, but Mr. Carney responds, and then I have another question for Blanchet.
Well, first of all, we need to fight in a trade war. We need to fight with counter tariffs. And all the money collected from our counter tariffs will go directly to workers and the businesses that are the most affected by this trade war.
Good response.
They won't be used for tax cuts the way that Mr. Poilievre is going to do.
You always want to increase them. You're a liberal. We want to.
Dude, Poilievre's such a fucking nutcase. Okay, here's the thing. So, Singh is thinking that because, like, obviously, yeah, Singh and Carney share a lot of the same voter base. But one thing I feel like the NDP doesn't realize is that attacking Carney like this doesn't work the same way that it does for... I mean, I guess debate just isn't really that effective at changing people's minds. Because, I was going to say, he can give a sensible answer. That's a very sensible answer. And he knows that he has the advantage of the fact that you're essentially giving him a layup because you have left-wing worries. And he will be able to vocalize those left-wing worries in a way that Poilievre can't. And then Poilievre's just like, you want to raise taxes.
Started as Prime Minister.
For a fourth liberal term.
I've just started.
You were...
And also, like, he's announced tax cuts. He hasn't announced any raised taxes.
Be used for tax cuts the way that Mr. Poilievre is going to do.
You always want to increase them. You're a liberal. We want to cut taxes.
Started as Prime Minister.
For a fourth liberal term.
I've just started.
You were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. Have you forgotten that?
Honestly, let me cut in here. Both of them would cut taxes for billionaires and millionaires. They have already done it in the past. Your first step was to reduce taxes for the millionaires. Pierre Poilievre would do the same thing.
That's not true.
You're not thinking of regular people.
We've cut the consumer carbon tax. That's what we did.
Mr. Singh, Mr. Blanchet, we've been telling Canadians for several days that it would be better to have a minority.
Did Singh say he's not going to cut them for regular people?
The consumer carbon.
Pierre Poilievre would do the same thing.
That's not true.
You're not thinking of regular people.
We've cut
the millionaires. Pierre Poilievre would do the same thing.
That's not true.
You're not thinking of regular people.
We've cut the...
Yeah. Singh was on the right track, but saying you're not thinking about regular people is kind of weird because Carney's tax policy does take into account regular salaries.
Carbon tax. That's what we
Mr.
did.
Singh, Mr. Blanchet, we've been telling Canadians for several days that it would be better to have a minority government. You said it clearly. With Trump, can Canadians not want a majority government that's stronger?
I don't know where that reasoning comes. The minority government would be weaker than a majority government. Go tell that to the Germans, who have only governed through coalitions recently. Many countries have coalitions, and if that is the population of the people, then great. At this point, it's possible that Canadians and Quebecers, perhaps, choose to trust in someone who has the least experience in politics. Quebec has a different economy, different interests, different everything. We want a parliament where our economic difference is taken into account.
Let's talk a little bit about
Mr. Singh, in terms of the minority government.
The whole point of a minority government is to help people, to make a difference in people's lives. But honestly, Mr. Blanchet, unfortunately, in the last minority government, you showed that you were as useless as the monarchy is. You did nothing for people. What is worse, you voted against measures that would help Quebecers. Dental care, pharmacare. These are measures that have helped.
Dude, Singh is attacking everyone.
Quebec jurisdiction, dental care, health care,
people in Quebec,
pharmacare,
people
money
in
that
Quebec.
we send to Ottawa. Ottawa does not have the expertise or the jurisdiction.
We are
Quebec
paying their
does.
bills.
Mr. Roy,
Please let me finish one sentence.
Please wrap it up.
When we want to be effective, we give the money to the experts, those who have the legal jurisdiction to spend the money, and that is Quebec in this case. The NDP gave $2 billion to an insurance company.
Giving
Everything
money
was
to our
going
Quebec seniors.
fine until now, but Mr. Carney, in terms of the minority government,
Mr. Roy, we are in a crisis, the most serious crisis of our lives. We need to react with resounding, overwhelming strength. Yes, we need to cut a few taxes. Yes, we need to cut bureaucracy. But the government needs to act in a time of crisis. So we need to have a government ready to act.
But when you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor, you weakened our economy. We need economic sovereignty, and that means bringing back production to Canada. And I would reverse Liberal policies around development. I would expedite.
Advisor isn't a full-time
permits.
position.
We would have
At least it wasn't for Carney.
permits, and that would, and I would also make sure that we could send our energy to Europe to break Europeans' dependence on Putin, and to break our dependence on the U.S.
The Conservatives and the Liberals both prioritize the ultra-rich, not you, not
Right,
regular
we do
Canadians.
have a segment on that.
That's the difference.
We have a segment on energy and pipelines, so we'll come back to that later. There are people who are watching us who are concerned. There will be negotiations with the Americans, obviously. Well, you'll all say supply management here, but I'd like to say that Canada gave up market shares during the last 3 trade deal negotiations. We're talking about more than $450 million a year in losses for Canadian farmers. So what is something you wouldn't concede in a negotiation?
I will defend supply management. I will defend the French language. I will defend our healthcare system. I will defend our decisions and our laws. We will always be sovereign. And the way we're going to restore that sovereignty, Canadian sovereignty, is by making our economy stronger.
What do you mean restore our sovereignty? I feel like this is super nitpicky of me, but also like I don't like that. I mean, it's also translated. But if he's saying like actually restore, that's such a weird word to use. I don't know why. It's just weird.
To cut red tape
It's inferring that we've lost our sovereignty.
by 25% for businesses. We need to reduce development charges, taxes on housing. We need to support labor and energy
Great.
and domestic production. That's how we can be more sovereign.
Supply management. Well, I'll go around the table, Mr. Carney.
In the face of the U.S.
It's nice to say supply management, but we've said it 3 times and it hasn't been done. So,
Well, this is the first time that I will be at the table if I am elected as Prime Minister. I've said a number of times, and since the beginning of my campaign in Mauricie, we'll never touch supply management. We won't put Quebec culture or the French language on the table. And I think we all agree on that point. And that's important. We have to be very clear from the beginning when talking to the Americans.
One area that we don't agree on is that Pierre Poilievre would cut our healthcare system.
That's not
You
true.
said it, everyone knows it. You said that you want to cut. You would cut dental care,
Not true.
pharmacare. You called them bad ideas. And unfortunately,
These are
Mr.
true.
Carney's plan to budget the operating budget in 3 years
Mr. Singh,
would lead to $43 billion
we'll talk about
worth
that in
of
the next
cuts.
segment. Cost of living, we'll talk about tax cuts later and choices, and we will underscore that none of you
We'll get to it later. We'll get to it later.
has tabled a costed plan. These are just promises. Mr. Blanchet on
We
supply
have
management.
tabled a program, first of all. Second of all, we are not the ones who decide what's on the table. If Mr. Trump says, I want to talk about this, no one will be able to stop him from at least talking about it. We've never sacrificed the principle of supply management. So it's empty words. Little bits have been sacrificed every single time at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars every single time. All Mr. Trump wants is a wave of Wisconsin milk with hormones, with no protection against
So
antibiotics.
what would you do concretely.
We will bring back an act that everyone approved. The Liberals before Carney approved it, everyone had approved it, but then there were certain intrigues with unelected senators. There's a number of unelected
And,
members of Parliament
law
that
would-
seem to be making decisions.
What would protect better?
Well, maybe I agree with that law, but my point is that we need to invest in Canada. Our plan, which will be unveiled this weekend, will catalyze $500 billion of investment in Canada over the next 5 years. And that will be important in our negotiations with Mr. Trump.
I'd like us to listen to a worker together from Stellantis. For him, this crisis with the U.S. is very clear. He's just lost his job.
I was laid off by Stellantis because of the trade war with the U.S. How will your government stop Mr. Trump from attacking our industries one by one? And how will you protect our jobs?
That's an English speaker.
Concrete measures. How will you help workers? You all have different proposals. Mr. Poilievre.
First of all, I already announced a fund to help companies keep jobs, to keep workers in their jobs, because the priority of workers is to keep working. Secondly, there will be EI to protect people who have fallen on rough times. I will be there for people who've lost their jobs. At the same time, we need
Personally?
to stimulate investment to strengthen our economy and to encourage new companies. We need to unleash our natural resources, and we need to create more jobs in resource industries. We also want to create more jobs for tradespeople at a time when they need work to build new houses.
Let's stay on workers. Mr. Singh.
If a business wants to sell cars in Canada, they should be required to have a factory in Canada, a presence in Canada, and I would put this in a law. We are a major market. If you want to sell here, you should create jobs here. And let me add, the first thing Mr. Poilievre said in 2022 when he became Conservative leader is that he would cut EI contributions. So it is not credible that he would increase support to people when he talked.
I don't know if I like that. I don't think I like that.
Required to have a factory in Canada, a presence. They should be. If a business wants to sell cars in Canada, they should be required to have a factory in Canada, a presence in Canada, and I would put this in a law. We are a major market. If you want to sell here, you should create jobs here. And let me add, the first thing Mr. Poilievre said in 2022 when he became Conservative leader is that
Where's the line for that, though?
EI contributions. So it is not credible that he would increase support to people when he talked about eliminating
Mr.
contributions.
Blanchet. For workers, you've said you want to go back to a pandemic-style wage subsidy.
The principle of that. We said that even before the campaign. To paraphrase Mr. Poilievre, EI is fairly broken. People have difficulty accessing it, and I disagree with Mr. Carney's suggestion to say that money will be invested in training. You've lost your job, but we're going to train you, and you're going to have another kick at a can at the age of 55. Not a good idea. The idea of the wage subsidy was to allow the worker to have a link to their job by giving them a subsidy so that the employer, should they want to, could rehire them someone who had the skill to do the job. So there would be a transitional period where there could be temporary job losses, like for the case we just heard.
Well, first of all, three things. All the money from our counter tariffs will go directly to workers. Second, we have a strategic fund for manufacturing in Canada, specifically for the auto sector. And third, our counter-tariff system for the automotive sector contains an incentive of $7 billion for the automakers to keep production and workers here in Canada. That's very important. But the reason that we've done all of this is so that we can have strong positions to negotiate with Trump.
Just to conclude, I think we need to encourage Canadians to buy Canadian-made cars. And that's why, as long as there are tariffs, we will scrap the GST on cars and trucks that are built here, mainly built here in Canada.
Good, because my next
I think the tariff is a good idea. What allows companies to buy and sell more, then yes, I do agree with that approach.
70%.
Mr. Poilievre copied our idea. We announced the GST lifting for Canadian-made cars before him.
Now, there are a lot of things that are in all of your
Dude, Sing
platforms.
sucks.
We'll come back to that.
I'm
Now,
sorry,
70%
but
of Canadians say that they're buying fewer American products. That's a big number. You leaders, could you please name me one made-in-USA product that you no longer buy?
that's a funny question.
I buy my own strawberries.
So you don't buy strawberries anymore?
I buy Quebec strawberries, and I do my own shopping, by the way.
So what products have you not bought,
Well,
Mr. Carney?
No more wine, no more alcohol, no more American alcohol.
I do my own shopping, and I cook at home.
Why do they need
Lots of
feel the need to
products.
say that?
Fruits, there's a lot of Canadian apples.
So you're making an effort.
Yes, I'm making an effort with apples, other fruit, strawberries.
Strawberries. Everyone is eating a lot of strawberries these days.
I bring it up because I do my own grocery
I'm in a
shopping,
different
which
position.
Carney does not.
This is a delicious conversation. It's beef in my case. I buy Canadian beef. It's the best beef in the world. But I never buy American strawberries either.
Organic
Okay.
beef from Quebec
Next
is also
theme.
not bad.
Well, let's share some of that
All
someday.
right.
I will. That's a good take by
Next theme
Poilievre.
is the cost of
Canadian beef slaps.
prices keeping every penny going up. The middle class is hurting, and for the poor, it's worse. We're retired and we're counting every penny. We're getting poorer. I feel like no one really listens to young people on housing or the cost of living. So what does the future hold for us young people? What does the future hold for young people? I'll give you a few figures here very briefly. I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but in Montreal, housing prices have more than doubled over 10 years, from over $300,000.
By the way, this game, this debate moved because of the hockey game.
Vancouver as well. So my question, and
Like
you'll have
the time
35
zone
seconds,
or the
first of
time that
all,
it was supposed
how
to
can
start
we improve
was moved
access
2
to
hours
housing,
early.
For example, for this young woman that we just heard from, Mr. Blanchet.
Clearly, it's through the starting capital and another GST-based policy. There needs to be access to capital for their down payment. My children can't pay for a house. A lot of them have jobs, good jobs. It's essential that we give them a little boost. Using public money, for example, and it's not during a crisis and that in cutting budgets that we will be able to do so. We need to reduce speculation on house prices. We need to invest in affordable housing, social housing, student housing to give a good price and reduce pressure
Thank you, Mr.
in
Blanchet.
the
Mr.
residencies
Poilievre,
of
35
Canada.
seconds.
I'm with you, with all those who are having a hard time affording their groceries, or young people who can't buy a house. After a decade of liberal inflation, liberal policies have increased the cost of living the most in 40 years. I will cut your taxes for the average worker by 15%. We will scrap the GST on
15% is
and we will
crazy.
incentivize municipalities to speed up permits and construction so that young people can once again buy a home
Mr. Carney.
and restore the dream of home ownership.
In order to fix this crisis in the cost of living, we need to make sure that Canadians have more money in their pockets, and they need to have more Canada in their pockets. So that means a tax cut for the middle class, and our plan is almost $800 per family, cut the GST on first homes, and increase competition. And in Canada, we have dental care, pharmacare, and daycares. We need to protect that, and we need to double new housing construction in Canada with our plan.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Which I like. I like their plan a lot.
Thank you. When I
Their housing
talk to
plan
people
is
and the
just
cost of living comes up,
fucking
there are two main topics. First,
socialism.
grocery costs. Second, housing costs for groceries.
It's not actually, but it's
The
funny to
major
say that.
grocery giants are gouging us. We saw this with the price of bread, the price of meat. They drive prices up, and they are gouging the Canadian public. We would put price caps on essential groceries. We would also stop corporate landlords from buying up affordable housing and apartments. We are in it for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. 245,000 housing units were built in 2024. You've all promised to massively accelerate the pace of that construction. The Liberals have said 500,000, the NDP 600,000. Mr. Singh, you're going to start this part of the open debate. Do houses grow on trees?
We have a clear plan for how to make this happen. First, we would not sell off our federal land. We would keep it, and we would build affordable housing.
Yeah, I don't like that Polyev wants to
100%
sell federal
affordable.
land
We would
like that.
train Canadian workers to build more homes. We also must keep the affordable housing that we do have, and unfortunately, the two major parties have let rich speculators buy up affordable housing. And now we have no more. That's a major issue. We need to keep our affordable housing and build more housing in general.
A couple of ideas. First of all, I would like to talk for Quebec. There are delays of hundreds of thousands of houses to be built, and we don't have the human resources to do so. But there are initiatives for small housing, for social housing, modular housing, that would allow us to build quicker with fewer resources and cheaper to accommodate as many people as possible. But I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's financial framework, because the Conservatives want to cut. They're going to have to cut spending at some point as well. The Liberals want to cut in revenue but increase expenditure. There's some financial magic that's in there somewhere. I would like to hear their financial framework, or
We'll
even
come
their
back to
electoral
that
platforms.
in a minute,
That would be
the
nice.
Constant Plan. But Mr. Carney, 500,000 housing
Yes.
units.
And we need to get started so that we can get the housing market working better with a reduction in bureaucracy at the municipal level and in fees. But we are proposing a new institution, Build Canada Homes, which is going to build affordable homes using lumber from Quebec, using lumber from British Columbia, using Canadian wood, and using new Canadian technologies. We are going to create a new industry.
But it
How
seems to
can you
me
say 500,000 units? I mean, I could say 800,000,
No,
400,000. Where's this coming from?
You know, if I can have 35 seconds, we need to add funding of $25 billion for the development of affordable homes and $10 billion for...
Mr. Polyev, you haven't costed your objective.
yes,
of
we will
600,000.
in our platform, which is going to come out in a few days. But Mr. Carney, you're repeating exactly the same promises that Justin Trudeau has been making for 10 years. During the Liberal decade, when you were the economic advisor, the
was
cost of
governor
housing
of the
has
Bank
gone up.
of England
And you
during
inflated the cost of housing
time.
then, too. You have a terrible record in England for real estate costs there, real estate prices. The problem is that the Liberals want to build bureaucracy. They want to balloon bureaucracy by creating new departments, new bureaucrats. We don't need more bureaucrats. We need more homes, more new doors on new homes for young families. The reason why housing has become so expensive today is because of taxes and bureaucracy. I will eliminate the GST on new homes. I will incentivize cities to free up land and accelerate permits so that we can build, and build your home.
Oh my God! He's cooking!
Yes, absolutely.
Shut the fuck up.
Over 200,000.
I'll tell you, 6. You built 6 homes.
Yeah, you did. You built 6 fucking homes.
We cannot believe what
You
you're
asked
saying.
the question, can I answer
We cannot
it?
believe Mr. Poilievre. He only built 6 homes
200,000.
when he was in power.
Can I answer?
We know the answer.
Can I answer? It was 200,000 that year, and the cost of the average home was $450,000. So thanks very much for reminding everyone of my record. It was a good record.
During the 10 years the Conservatives were in power, rent doubled, housing costs doubled. And then, when the Liberals came in, they doubled again.
I believe this is true.
Mr. Carney benefited from the housing crisis when he was the board chair at Brookfield Investments. His company benefited from the housing crisis by buying up affordable buildings and tripling rents.
Mr. Carney.
Okay, Mr. Poilievre's approach is everyone for themselves. In the COVID crisis, he said, okay, let's cut taxes, let's cut bureaucracy. This crisis, now that we're facing, the greatest crisis of our lives, he's saying, cut taxes, cut bureaucracy. In a crisis, you have to do that to a certain point, but you have to act as a government. And if I may, you need to have capital to catalyze investment.
Yeah.
And with a small
Why are you trying to defund the government right as we're fucking entering a trade war?
Huge private investment and a new Canadian industry.
Mr. Blanchet, then Mr. Poilievre.
Another proposal that I find interesting is to allow parents who have money in savings for their retirement to take the money temporarily to help for their kids' down payment. That's not $500 billion that will be required. These are not civil servants that will be fired. This is a logical decision made by parents like myself who want to help their kids without money from the state, with a tax measure that helps retirees who want to help their children. Would that not be more concrete than programs after programs that are just empty words and for which there's no financial framework?
Yeah, I'll come back to that in a minute, but let's let Mr. Poilievre conclude because you were having a conversation
Yes.
with Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney, in 2020 and 2021, you said that inflation wouldn't happen and that it would have been a good thing if it did. You were quoted in the media, and you even advised Justin Trudeau to print money, and that's what caused our inflationary crisis. You're just like Justin Trudeau. You have exactly the same policy.
Quantitative easing is not what's causing inflation.
You do not embody change.
You represent the ultra-rich.
If they don't print the fucking money,
Justin Trudeau, I'm not
then
Justin
the
Trudeau
system's way worse.
In this election, the question is, who is going to succeed?
Inflation isn't caused by the government just printing more money. Like, yeah, that's the final result, and that's what causes the price of your money to devalue. But the fact that the government is printing more money is because fucking rich people hold all of their wealth. And so if you don't print more money, there's not enough to go around for the rest of us. So yeah, quantitative easing isn't the cause of inflation. Rich people hoarding their wealth is.
Who is going to face Mr. Trump?
Same parties, same ministers, same caucus, same ideology, same hostility against Quebec. It's not just because the leader changes that the philosophy will magically change overnight.
You are all proposing, or just about all of you are proposing tax cuts. We'll see them up on the screen here. Mr. Carney announced that on the first day of the campaign. Mr. Poilievre's been announcing them for a long time. So for a couple earning $90,000 a year, you can see the numbers up here: $1,299 in savings for the Conservatives, $1,011 for the NDP, $577 for the Liberals. And the cost of those measures is really what I want to underline here. Mr. Poilievre, you're spending more on tax cuts than the NDP or Liberals. Now, you've all arrived here this evening with no costed financial plan. It's been a long time since we've seen that at the time of the leaders' debate, the leaders don't have a costed plan. So we don't know how you're going to pay for these tax cuts. Now, I'm going to be careful how I word this, but don't you think it's irresponsible to Canadian voters to do this? Mr. Carney, you said you've got the numbers, but where's your costed plan?
As I've just said, we'll be presenting our costed platform this weekend.
But why not earlier at an event?
There are 10 days left in the election campaign. It's about the same thing as Mr. Poilievre, as I've seen. And it is going to be costed, and the operational budget will be cleaned up. We'll balance it in 3 years. But at the same time, we will be investing in Canada and in Canadians.
Mr. Poilievre, where would you make the cuts? This comes back to my earlier question to Mr. Carney. In terms of the costed plans, what do you have to hide? Will transfers to provinces go down, for example?
We're going to cut consultants. Believe it or not, a Canadian family is spending $1,400 in federal tax just to pay for consultants. That's been a 100% increase. I'm going to cut consultants. Secondly, we're going to cut the cost of bureaucracy through attrition. People will be retiring, and we don't need to replace all of them. We can slowly, gradually reduce the cost of the bureaucracy. Third, we're going to pass a dollar for dollar bill. For every new dollar in spending, there will have to be a dollar in reduced spending.
Yeah, you can say that, but that doesn't tell us what you're going to cut.
We are going to generate $70 billion
but again,
more in
you
revenues.
And Mr. Carney don't have a costed plan that we've seen.
We are the only party that has talked about ways to increase government revenues. We have talked about closing tax loopholes, getting rid of tax havens, empowering the CRA to go after corporations that are not paying their taxes. These are not tax increases. These are taxes that are already supposed to be paid. The CRA has said that tens of billions of dollars in revenue.
This is a good point to attack.
Pierre Poilievre has been very honest with Canadians. He will cut. He will cut healthcare.
Not true. No,
he will
not true.
cut
That's false.
EI. He said
That's
this back in
false.
2022 when he became leader of the Conservative
true.
Party.
That's false.
And
Yeah, this
Mark
is
Carney
true.
has also said very clearly that he would make massive cuts.
No.
He would cut $43 billion worth
For
of
the first
spending.
time.
Mr. Carney, then Mr. Blanchet.
No, that's not right at all. I've said there is an operational budget that's over $200 billion a year.
You notice how Carney, when he was like, this is not true, he clarifies what he said, while Poilievre just kind of goes, no, not true. No, that's not true. No, actually, no, that's not true. Explain myself? Nah. The liberals, them liberals, they've been here for too long.
And that budget has grown 9% year over year over the last 10 years. We need to slow down that growth. And we'll do that with technology. We'll do that with attrition, as Mr. Poilievre has suggested. And we can do that, and we will do that, and it's necessary. But we're not going to cut transfers to individuals, nor transfers to the provinces.
So the provinces will not get less money. Mr. Blanchet, is that what you believe?
Well, I've an issue with this. These are Harry Potter financial frameworks. You need a lot of magic to make it work. There needs to be more money, but we're going to do cuts. They want to be more conservative than the Conservatives. basic economic state that when there's a threat of recession or slowdown, that is when the state, well, that's why we're not saying cut taxes, we're saying make good investments. We want to invest in our military forces. It's the time to do so with Canadian companies, the Quebec Tramway that Mr. Poilievre doesn't want to do. That's what we have to do. We have to have targeted investments, health transfers so that the Maisonneuve-Rosemont Hospital can be renovated. It's time to invest in infrastructure, public infrastructure with public money so that everyone can keep their jobs.
So no tax cuts.
No, it wouldn't be a tax cut. There would be a specific budget for it.
It's necessary.
We have to keep going. They want to do one thing and the other. Cut, but somehow make more money. Something doesn't work.
We've started with the cost of living. We have to cut taxes for the cost of living.
What Mr. Blanchet said is true. You are talking about a magic spell here, Mr. Carney.
I feel like this argument doesn't actually
This is one rare
work.
moment where we agree. On February 16th, you sat down with Rosemary Barton and you said that you would cut spending in
Yes,
the operating budget.
operational spending.
Yeah.
That's different.
You said
One at a time, please.
that this would affect transfers for
No.
healthcare and to individuals.
Mr. Roy, no,
I have a question.
that's not right at all. That's not right at all.
Please, Mr. Carney, you'll have the opportunity to answer later. The question that people are asking themselves, and you may have heard this, Mr. Singh, you know, you've promised that every Canadian will have a family doctor, that there will be vastly more nurses. Does the federal government need to continue developing more national plans like pharmacare and dental care? Or, option two, should they be giving more money to the provinces for health care? Mr. Carney, you'll start off. More programs or more money
First
for
of all,
programs?
the priority for the federal government is to invest and to catalyze investment in the most serious crisis we're facing in our lives. We need to catalyze private investment in our economy to create new and good jobs. That's the first thing we need to do. In terms of transfers to provinces for healthcare, yes, there are limits to the federal government's activity. No,
So no new
programs.
programs.
No.
Mr. Blanchet?
It's easy. All premiers from the provinces and territories unanimously asked for a 35% health transfer. I would like to re-explain it. The federal government receives more money than it needs. It needs $10, it gets 12. Quebec needs $10, but it only gets 8. So the federal government could take its surplus and say, I would like to invest in your jurisdictions. The Liberals and the Conservatives agree on this, and the NDP loves butting its nose into provincial jurisdiction. The Constitution sets out jurisdictions. The
right.
easiest way is to give the money
Mr.
without
Singh?
conditions.
You've said that we do need to step in, that we need to have more programs like this.
Let me explain. Absolutely, we need to increase health transfers. Absolutely, in order to help out the provinces. What is more, we are now in the midst of a crisis, a healthcare crisis. It is being felt here in Quebec and all throughout the country. We should recognize that a leader is someone who looks for solutions, not excuses. I believe that we should be investing more in fixing problems. And yes, we can work with the provinces to hire more healthcare workers. We can work with them to get through this crisis. Pharmacare is one area where everyone can come together to bring down the cost of medication. We believe in helping people.
Deciding Quebec's priorities isn't your jurisdiction. I don't go
This
to
is
your house
something
and tell
that
you
will
how to
help
pay your
out
wall, do
everyone.
I?
This is a weird point to fight
It's
him
money
on.
that you would refuse to give Quebec.
We can do two things at
Mr.
once. We
Poilievre?
can transfer money and then work with the provinces on other solutions.
Mr. Poilievre, more money to the provinces or more federal programs?
I think the federal government is taking too much tax revenues and delivering too little. And that's the Liberal track record after 10 years. And the question for Canadians is, you can't afford your groceries and you can't afford your rent or your housing because it's too expensive now after 3 terms of liberal government. Will a 4th Liberal term change things for you enough for you to be able to buy a house and have a beautiful life?
Okay, for the health program, I didn't
On
understand.
healthcare, no. What I propose on that is a program that the federal government could coordinate, and that is to do with licenses for doctors and nurses. It would be a voluntary program, as has previously existed, to allow immigrants to be licensed and be able to work in our hospitals to reduce your wait times.
So everyone agrees